Welcome to the GoPROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to Go Pro with Jeremy Torres. Today on the GoPROcast, we have a former worldwide director of finance from Apple. Rusty Gaillard left the corporate world in 2019 when his external success no longer felt like personal success. Rusty now works as an executive coach for business owners looking for more success with less sacrifice. Rusty lives in Silicon Valley with his wife and 15-year-old son. He's a best-selling author of the book called Breaking the Code: Stop Looking for Answers and Start Enjoying Life. He's also a professional speaker, a musician, and an avid outdoorsman. Please welcome to the GoPROcast, Rusty Gaillard. So let's start. Welcome to the show, Rusty. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jeremy. Happy to be here.
So I start off every show, besides falling over my words and spelling things wrong and correcting them, with a question from a good friend of mine, Steve Noodleberg's podcast called Tell Me Something Good.
Something good is every day that we wake up is a blank slate. Most of us think about the day as planned and booked and scheduled, and I've got all these appointments, I got work to go to, all that kind of stuff. But the reality is every day that we wake up really is a blank slate, and you get to choose how you're going to put your energy in that day. You get to choose how you're going to show up, what you're thinking about, what you're focused on, and what you do. And when you think about it that way, it's like, man, there's so much potential in every day.
It is. And I take that half a step further when something goes wrong. For the last, maybe 10 years or so, I've adopted this, how are you doing? Are you having a good day? Well, I'm having about an hour. There's only 24 of them in a day, and I'm not going to ruin all 24 of them with something that I can probably get through in the next 60 minutes.
Well, and by the way, I think that that's something that I think about too. When people ask me, how's your day or how's your week been? And it's fine to say it's been hard or it's been challenging or it's a bad week or, I get that feeling. But first of all, that's not at all descriptive, right? You want to label your entire week, your entire day as bad.
Yeah.
Like you can do that, but is that really true? And then get a little bit more detailed about what's been hard or what's been challenging. It's like, well, I've had a lot of work and I've had to stay up late and I haven't gotten as much sleep as I wanted to.
Right.
That's a totally different explanation than like, oh, it's been a hard week.
Yeah, now you can really connect with somebody and they'll probably say, well, I just went through that last week and here's what really helped me out, right? And get an opportunity to share some positivity.
Exactly.
If you're hanging around the right people.
Yeah.
You don't want the misery loves company people. You don't want to say that to them.
That's true.
Well, we guard it. We guard our orbits pretty tightly these days, I think. So you've got a very interesting story. You're with the largest company in America, Apple, and you're in finance there. Mm-hmm. And in a 20-minute conversation, you had basically, could I call it an epiphany?
Sure.
To say, that's it. I'm out of here with the papers thrown up.
So I would say the epiphany that happened in those 20 minutes is I knew where I was going to go. I had a desire to make a change for many years. And so let me just back up by saying Apple's a great company. I loved working there. They're super smart people. And I was very fortunate to have the job I had. Mm-hmm. So all of that is true. And I was no longer climbing the ladder. I didn't have aspirations to do more and bigger things at Apple. And so what that left me with is I'm just more or less in this job until I retire.
Yeah.
And that sounded horrible. Like I'm not the kind of person who wants to sit still, who wants to be safe and just, get a good paycheck and all of that, but not really feel engaged, fulfilled, serving a purpose, any of that. So I think, Apple as a big company does that, but I just didn't feel the connection for my impact in delivering that at the company. So I knew I wanted to change.
It's almost like you have to stay out of a duty. Well, I've got this degree and I've got this time in with the company and I've got this, established personal picture of myself and how others see me. And to go, you know what, what was it that was about that moment though that really brought the clarity? Had you thought about it before, and that was like that was it, the last straw, or was this really just an impact moment?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to totally agree with you about, all of this, who I am. It's how I saw myself. And so there was all this momentum behind staying at Apple. And in those 20 minutes, well, actually the biggest thing that happened is the person speaking helped me to break through all of that stuff. Like, what if you didn't worry about what you've done in the past, or what other people thought about you, or what your friends are doing, or what your parents might
That's good stuff. What if?
Yeah. What if you stopped worrying about that? Then what would you actually love to be doing? And the way I describe it to people is, imagine you got the lamp and you rub the lamp and the genie comes out.
Yeah.
And the genie says, "What do you want?" You're not going to say, "Boy, I'd really like a 10% raise." Right? Like, if you got the genie, you're going to go big.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I wish I had more time at work and less time at home with the family.
Right. Right.
That's what they say on Tombstone. No tombstone ever said, "I wish I'd spent more time at work."
Exactly. And the thing is, you can still be successful. You can still have a rewarding work and progress at work and all of that, but it's doing it in a way that's right for you. And that's what I was able to connect with in this talk, right? By thinking about what if. And when I did, what I discovered is I want to have these kinds of conversations with people. I want to talk about what matters and your struggles and your pain points and all that, because it's real, and get into that and address it. And back to where we started, if you think about every day as a clean slate, you can invest your time and energy however you want to. Why not invest at least some of that time and energy towards what you want to create in your life? And that's what I did.
So when you said you're going to get curious about what other kinds of work that you could do, because that's a really exciting time, right in there in that tweener time between, I know I'm not going to be here, but what do I define success? How is that going to look when I'm not doing what I've always been doing? So how do you land with executive coaching? Obviously, you're working at that level, but what was it about your experience that now that you can help other executives stay doing what they want to do, or do you help them actually also transition to things that would make them happy too? Can you do both? Or are you just like, that'll never make anyone happy? Or do you help them succeed at growing in their roles as well?
I do both. I absolutely do both. I mean, I've had clients who leave their job, go back for a master's degree, and totally change fields.
Yeah.
I've also had clients who get promoted multiple times in their company because they are more effective. So I think what many people get wrong is they assume that their ability to be successful is determined by other people, by their boss, their environment, the culture, the job responsibilities, the opportunities they get. And those things are real, of course, but the real power for you to make a change is inside of you. And when you decide what it is that you want and you get clear on it and you move towards it, you can achieve it. So I've helped people get promoted multiple times inside their job, and even doing it in a way that, I think one of my clients, when we first started working together, he said, "Honestly, my girlfriend wants me to quit.
Yeah.
Because I'm so stressed all the time. All I do is work. We haven't taken a vacation in 2 years." Right? I mean, it's like, so we went from that to being promoted. So having more responsibility, but not carrying it in such a heavy way. So he was actually taking vacation and having time with his girlfriend and stopping work at times so that he had time for himself and to recover. So that's for me, those things go hand in hand. You can't keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing because at some point you run out of juice.
No matter how tough you think you are.
Yeah.
Because some people, you blink, and I'm a victim of that. I had to take a job that put me out of the country, or out of the state first, and then out of the country for very extended periods of time. For 10 years, I was gone and missed a lot. But I thought I had no choice at that time. And so you talk about courage, and I love that word, because courage is not that you're not afraid. It's just that you work through it anyway, in spite of being afraid. And I pride myself on being a bully growing up the way I grew up, and I got in a lot of fights for the right reasons. Not that fighting's ever right, but I was a protector. And I thought that by leaving and making money for the family was the right thing to do, but really in the long run, was it? You're always going to
Yeah.
second guess of all the things you miss. So how do you help these people identify not only having the courage to make these choices, but to feel in their, wherever it is, in their heart or in their soul, their being, that this is the right choice to make, even though we're going to have to redefine what success looks like for a while?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing, I want to go back to this idea of courage because, so many of us, our definition of success is influenced by our environment, but it's also influenced by our past, as you were talking about earlier, right? It's like, well, I've invested so much time and energy in this career. I'm not going to give it up now.
Yeah.
And the people that I work with are people who are wanting another level of success, and success in the broadest sense, right? Success, not just in terms of your title and your salary, but
Yeah.
success in terms of your happiness and your relationships and your health and your career progression.
Yes.
So it's building that trust and building that courage to say, am I willing to believe in myself? Am I willing to believe in that thing that I want and take action on it?
Yes. And that action is the next step. All right. So if it is something else like you did, like I did, I left 30 years of telco construction, utility construction to do this. I call it the Get To Studios because now I get to do what I want and meet people like you all day long. But that transition was many, many sleepless nights. And how do you do it? And you feel like you're letting people down who you think are counting on you at that corporate level. So how do you deal with that inner turmoil and decision-making, the proper way to leave a certain industry or a company who you have a sense of loyalty to? If you're making these decisions, you're a loyal person, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always tough to deal with. And I know there's not one answer, but on a broad sense, how do you answer that?
It is tough to deal with. And I think just to acknowledge that is a tough time, and to acknowledge that anytime you're going to making a change, even if it's a change for good, something that you want,
right,
you're going to have some internal resistance because it's change. We're all used to being comfortable in what we know. So acknowledging that and not letting it stop you. So, and I'll just give you an example. For me, I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind, and this was my experience as well, that you usually don't go from A to Z all in one big leap. So when I decided I was going to become an executive coach, I didn't walk in the next day and quit my job. I started investigating. What am I going to like? Do I want to get trained? And I did. So I went and I got trained and certified. Then I said, okay, how can I start my business while I'm still doing my job at Apple? And I got my business started. And then after a period of time, it became clear that it was time to have a conversation with my boss. So I did. And even then I didn't leave. I went down to half time at Apple and half time in my own business. And I did that for a while. And then I finally left. So by the time I said goodbye to my career at Apple, it was the logical next step. And it didn't feel like this huge thing. Yes, there was still some risk and I was nervous about it, but it wasn't this, oh my gosh, is this crazy? Because I had taken all these steps.
Yeah. And then by then too, investing, I think, primarily into the training and the coaching, finding people that you want to do it, ingesting all of that information and maybe living it every day. You felt this is truly making me happy before you actually had that discussion with your boss. Otherwise, you might then go, well, maybe it's not quite this. So let's keep that Apple gig going. It's a pretty good one, or wherever it is, even at car wash, guy working a job. And before you jump out and leave that job, which is an epidemic today, people just thinking, I can get another job. And they can, unfortunately, but it's just, they're going to be in the same situation a year, 2 months, whenever it is, without really experimenting and feeling these things.
Yeah, I think there's an important piece in there. When I left my job at Apple, one of the things obviously I was excited about this business, but the other thing I was excited about is being my own boss. I'm like, hey, I love being outside. I love being in the sun and exercising and that kind of thing. And so I was like, I'm going to do that every day. 6 months later, I hadn't done it once.
Oh boy.
And so like, I think this idea of switching jobs because it's going to be better at your new job, like, I switched jobs and I'm my own boss and I still wasn't doing the thing that mattered to me. So where's the problem here? Clearly it's with me.
Yes. That's
and
right.
So, for anyone who's out there thinking about switching jobs, you have to acknowledge that you might be part of this, right? Yeah. So think about what it is that you want. Yeah, probably. Think about what it is you want and then say, is there something I can do to address that right now in this job that I'm in today?
Yes.
And experiment with that and see where that takes you.
Yeah. And I think that I always try to let my people live their best lives. So I was always really free with, we were privately owned, so we can take some liberties with comp time, which my boss always hated. They have to put in for their time. But we worked so many hours, and we were, so many weekends and everything. And so I was pretty liberal with that. And I always wanted them to do better, whatever that looked like. Whether it's here in the company. So I hired leaders. I didn't hire workers. I hired people who were forward thinking. So when people came to me and wanted to leave the company to go do this and this, I was like, yeah, I think that if that would make you happy, I'll even help you do that. So having that transparency right from the beginning with up and down, I pretty much was going on doing these podcasts a while back with a different show. And I was pretty much given a cease and desist. Like, you can't do that, man. You work here. And I'm like, well, not for long if this is how it's going to be, because it wasn't affecting my work. But I was just liking to talk to people and using this technology, so it was pretty new. And at the end of the day, certain people do not want you really to be happy. They just want you to make money for them.
Well, there's one of the things about people quitting their jobs, that's happening a lot right now, but there's definitely a shift in the power dynamic. If you think back 5 years ago, the power definitely rested with the company.
Yeah.
And you wanted a job at that company, you applied, but they held the power. And we're in this interesting time where it's shifting. And now the employee holds way more power and influence. And if you're in an environment where they're really not supporting you and your growth and all of that, that might be an indication that it's time to learn.
Right.
And I'm just a big believer that it's not all the company's responsibility to create that culture. It's also up to you. If you're unhappy, do something about it. You can have a conversation. You can just start doing things different. Like Jeremy, you said, you're just like, hey, I'm out there doing podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't hide it. You got to show it. But what was the toughest part for you in being an entrepreneur for the first time? I wrote a whole book about, half a book anyway, about the business elements that ate my lunch. Because I didn't know what I didn't know about a business. I just was a really good operator, Yeah. So what was it for you being a financial guy on a huge stage to now running your own business, and you go, wow, this thing is tripping me up?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that for me is, like, I was a finance guy. I was an engineer in college. I've been in operations. The biggest thing for me was marketing and sales.
Isn't that funny? How those two always are diametric typically to each other. The people, the talents, the skills, the courage. That's funny that you said that, and I was glad you did say that. So how did you start learning it, or did you just bring someone smarter than you at that?
Well, I definitely brought people smarter than me at that, but I did it not to do it for me, but to teach me and guide me.
Right.
I kind of joke, one of the things that they always tell you in business is you have to be clear about who your ideal customer is. Who do you want to be working with?
Yes.
And when I first started my business, I was like, oh, as long as they're breathing, I'm happy to work with them. Everyone that kind of laughs, but they're like, hey, if you have no ideal customer, you're not going to get any progress, any traction. Right. So even that requires courage, because I'm like, I don't want to rule someone out. If there's someone that I can help and they can benefit from our work together, I don't want to rule them out. And so just getting over that hump of, okay, I'm going to be get more narrow and more clear about who I like to work with, because that's going to help me find them and help them find me. And it does require some courage, because, I thought I was going to be losing out if I did that.
Yeah. FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And especially now when it's up to you, everything's up to you. And if you say no to somebody, when is the next one coming? Right. But if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit.
Absolutely.
I was on a podcast as a guest, and they were asking me questions, and they asked, how do you crush your competition? And I thought that was one of the worst questions that I'd ever been asked on a podcast. Because I don't believe in that. But how do you look at your competition now?
Yeah. It's funny. I would not say I try to crush competition at all. I think, certainly there's people who do very similar work to what I do. There's a ton of coaches out there, right? Yeah. You can't throw a rock without hitting one these days. But the reality is every coach is different, and the personality is not going to be a great match with every person. So if there's I've referred people who aren't a great match with me off to somebody else, and they get to help, they get success, which is wonderful. That's what I
Right.
want for them. I
That's what we
want you
want.
to be successful. So if it's not with me, that's okay. Go
Yeah.
find another person that you can be successful with.
Yeah. I think that's the sign of a mature person who is really ready to give, because the more you can help, it's like the Go Giver. I just did a podcast with Bob Burke. So I got Bob on the head, Bob on the mind there. And he really embodies that whole give. You can never give too much. And the more you give, it just comes back. It's the universal law. And so talking up competition, shining a light on the competition, because everything is a teaching moment if you let it be. And so I just liked him asking that question. I was like, I haven't thought about it in a long time. And I've changed so much in the last 10 years that I was happy that I had that response. It was an organic response. Like, wow, I don't even look at competition that way anymore, because I'm just fending for myself now, where I left that ultra competitive corporate world where they wouldn't allow you to do that.
Well, and I got to say, like, same for me. And there's still, I still have those little inklings of the competition that come up. And so I just want to acknowledge that, just to be transparent about, right? None of us is a saint, right? We're all human.
Yeah.
And sometimes we see someone else and we have a little of that competitive kind of response, and that's okay. And it's just a question of choosing. I think that's right. It's not like this thing, your competitive nature goes away, right? I still have that. It's just, how do I want to be in the world? Do I want to be a competitive person who's trying to crush my competition? Or do I want to be the kind of person who recognizes, hey, there's a ton of people who can add value. And maybe if I'm not the right fit, it's you or someone else. Great, let's go do that, right?
Yeah.
I get that choice.
Yeah, and I can learn from them, because they're doing something to be there.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
it is right inside. It's like chasing that rabbit, but that's what keeps us going. But it's that choice to publicly now, it seems like it's a paradigm switch, instead of trashing people, to talk them up even, which I love. So breaking the code, let me make this, let me get some of your stuff here out on the interweb here. For the people who are watching, your website, Silicon Valley Dream Builders.
Yes.
All right, svdreambuilders.com. And then your book, Breaking the Code, Stop Looking for Answers and Start Enjoying Life. How do you stop looking for answers? Enjoy life if you're not looking for the answers. Is it about being open and they just come, or what?
Well, yeah. So I think that most of us spend too long looking and not enough time walking down the path, not enough time taking action. So what I find is that when you're looking too much, you're trying too hard, you're trying to figure it out, you're thinking, right? And smart, successful people, right? How do we get to be smart and successful? By thinking and being logical and, smarter than other people, which is great. But that's not the path to a good life. Just like it's not the path to a good meal at a restaurant. You don't go in and ask for the nutritional analysis of the menu so that you can analyze it and pick the most nutritious thing.
Yeah.
You go with what sounds good. So it's the same idea here, right? It's like, stop overthinking it, really drop into what is it that you want, and then start doing it, right? That's the thing that most people just get stuck on. It's like, well, it's not the right time, or I don't know the right people, or, I can't do it right now. We all have reasons and excuses, but you can have reasons or you can have results. So take your pick. And if you want results, stop looking and start doing.
Reasons or results. It's your choice. I like that. And then when did you write this book? What was the motivator behind trying to get it out and getting your word? Is this your first book?
This is my first book. Yeah. Thank you. You've got a copy there. I'll hold up a little copy here as well. It came out in June of last year. So June of 2021.
Okay.
And it was really about introducing this idea of your potential and what you can do to change. So, I make this analogy to technology. You think about a phone, and you pop in a new app on your phone, and if it wants to access the camera or access the microphone or something, the app has to get permission from the operating system, right? The camera's there, the microphone's there, like it's all there. You just need permission in order to use it. So think about that same analogy for you. Let's say you want to put a new app in your life. So that might be a new job where you're making twice as much money as you're making now, or a new job where you're making 10% more, but working half as much, or, whatever that app is. that needs permission to access your full capabilities. And it's going to bump into your operating system, which is based on your past. It's your beliefs about what's possible. And that operating system is like, nope, permission denied. There's no way that you could ever make twice what you're making now because you've never made that much and you're not qualified. You don't know the right people, right? All of these thoughts is just like your phone saying, no, you can't access the camera. No, you have the capability, but you have to give yourself permission to access it. So I talk about breaking the code in that same way. You've got to break through all of these assumptions, beliefs, habits, patterns that you've carried forward from your past in order to have a new result in your life.
You know, what's funny about that too, when you're saying that, I was thinking somebody who you don't know, sitting somewhere behind a desk, wrote that code that is not allowing you to access your camera just because you want to and you don't push the right buttons. And that's probably true for the way you act and beliefs that you have now. They were probably coded by somebody else. The environment you were in, the people that you let in your life, the things you watch, the things you eat, and the people you listen to. So part of breaking that code is breaking your habits. Really, it's a much deeper solution than just going, I just think I'll do different. You have to break not only those codes, but a lot of times some relationships that are not healthy for you or that are negative, and how much you love to help somebody and you'll be there for them. You can't break that code with this constant bombardment of negativity and telling you can't. So it's got some external factors, but it's up to you to understand that.
Yeah, if I can just add a piece to that. So one is you want to find people who support you in thinking differently and thinking outside of the box. And the second is you want to avoid the people who like to keep you in the box. So I'll just give you a simple example. Is when I was going to leave Apple, I deliberately did not tell my dad about this until I was basically decided. And it's because my dad worked for 35 years at the same company. And his model of a successful career is to find a great company, be loyal, work hard, progress, and stay there. And I knew it would be challenging for him. And indeed, it was. When I told him I was going to leave Apple, to his credit, he didn't criticize me. He didn't tell me to do anything differently. But I could see in the look on his face that it was hard for him. And so I knew that. I anticipated it. I didn't talk about this before I made the decision because I knew what I would hear back. So I just, unfortunately, our family and the ones who love us the most also have the biggest stake in keeping us safe.
Yes,
that's true. These kinds of things that we're talking about feel risky to a lot of people. So they're like, oh, don't do that. What if it doesn't go well? And so oftentimes the people closest to you are not going to be the ones who are the most supportive of you in stepping forward and creating the kind of result and success you want in your life. So it's just important to acknowledge that. And it's not a bad thing. It's because they love you and they care about you and they want you to be safe.
Yes. And knowing that up front is us taking what they're having to say. It comes from a good place. But you don't, like I used to have to tell people, you just have to stop talking about it though, because I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And, some people, if they can't stop talking about it, then you have to physically see them less because it's important. You can't let yourself be exposed to that just because of the family bond. We have to make some tough choices sometimes, but I'm glad it worked out between Pops and you. Sounds like you guys stayed friends.
It did. And, he came around and came to appreciate what it takes to be an entrepreneur and start your own business. And, the messages, my book, all the things that I'm doing in the world. So he did come to appreciate all that.
So what is it now in our last few moments here together that you most appreciate about being on your own and helping people? What is it really, I guess the definition or a couple of, what's your why?
Yeah. My why is, I want to see people be their best selves because I fundamentally, when someone else is their best, they're happy, they're radiating that energy out into the world and they're influencing the people around them. And, it's the domino effect. And, it's changing the world one person at a time. And if I can touch one person, two people, three people, if there's someone listening who's inspired by this message and you want to have a conversation, like, let's do it because I'm all about, we need more people who are living their best life, who are happy and engaged and impacting the people around them.
Yes. Well, I appreciate our time together, Rusty. svdreambuilders.com. That's how they get in touch with us, to have a conversation with you, see how you can change your life, and then start helping other people change their lives. Stick around. I'd like to say goodbye to you after I stop recording here. And thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. It was great.
Well, thank you for watching. And I tell you, we are on a rip with the people that we're bringing on here. The word's getting out that this is a safe place to talk, a place that can share the most impactful information with people like you, people who are making the changes in their life and deciding it's time to go pro. See you next time.